it was the only job that I had ever done where I went home and I spit up some blood. I had ruptured something in the throat.
Anime has captivated a massive audience with millions of people from different countries around the world. And to bring the characters in these animes to life, you need a special kind of voice actor. So getting behind the mic with me today is Kaiji Tang, a voice actor and dubbing artist who has voiced a plethora of characters from anime to video games. Voicing characters like Satoru Gojo, Sanemi Shinazugawa, and Vegeta, it's more than likely that anime fans have come across his voice at some point. So join me as I have a conversation with Kaiji exploring his voice acting career, the characters he voices, and the art of voice acting. Kaiji Tang, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure to have you on. And I'll get right into it by asking what exactly inspired you to pursue a career in voice acting?
Well, I guess my cat is joining us for this interview. Apologies. I actually, I did theater for a good portion of my life. I fell in love with it when I was in high school, and I went to college for it. I studied for it. I thought I was going to do theater for my whole life. So did my cat, apparently. Thanks. And when I moved to Los Angeles, the plan was to, get my hands on whatever kind of acting. All right, buddy. Whatever kind of acting I could find. And it just so happened that I ended up doing a podcast for a dubbing studio, a studio that dubbed anime. And the director for this podcast was like, hey, I kind of like the sound of your voice. Would you like to maybe come in and read for some of our shows? And at that point, I had no idea basically anything about voiceover, right? So I went in completely blind, completely cold, booked the thing, and they kept calling me back for a number of years, and I was like, oh, maybe we should make a thing of this. So at the start, I never set out to pursue voiceover, just I sort of accidentally face planted into it,
So was there a particular role that you would say springboarded your career into voicing characters from popular animes like Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, and Dragon Ball Z?
I feel like it's been a pretty gradual, slow build up of it towards those kind of projects. I feel like if I had to choose one, possibly Archer from Fate Stay Night, when we did Unlimited Blade Works. That was probably my first and, at the time, biggest thing that I did. And I was very excited to do it because I was a longtime Fate fan. I was one of those kids who played the visual novels, probably way too early. So if I had to put a button on it, probably Archer from Fate Stay Night.
Looking early on in your career, as well as your more recent projects, has there been a project that you encountered that presented some particular challenges, and if so, how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's levels of challenges to every role, of course, but I feel like if there's one that stood out in my brain, there is a video game by the name of Disgaea 5, okay? And the character I played in it is a character named Red Magnus. And in voiceover, we have a sort of loudness scale that we sometimes use from 1 to 4, right? 1 is like stage whisper, you're right next to each other. 2 is like, hey, we're regular talking distance, hey, we're just chatting normally. 3, maybe you're across the room and I'm like kind of slightly elevating, it's like, hey, blah, 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 blah. 4, you're on fire, you're being shoved off cliffs, you're being shot, all that good stuff. Red Magnus existed at all times at a 3.5. That's just how this character spoke, right? He yelled almost everything. And when I was younger, when you're a younger performer, you have this tendency of wanting to put your best foot forward, in every single line delivery and be like, oh, I'm gonna give everything 120%. I'm gonna make sure that, they walk away impressed. Well, I tried that with Red Magnus when I was younger, and it was the only job that I had ever done where I went home and I spit up some blood. I had ruptured something in the throat.
Wow.
So that is probably the most challenging thing that I had learned. I had to learn how to protect myself afterwards. I was like, I can never do this again in the way I did this. So that was a real wake-up call. And I probably wouldn't never approach that character or any character like that way again. So challenging, but also good life lesson to learn.
I'll say, because very rarely do you hear about voice actors who come out with physical
injuries after a voice session because they push themselves so far. You normally hear about like, oh, it's the nerves, and then like after like maybe an audition, they went home and they threw up. Very rarely do you hear about blood being involved.
Yeah, not many folks were as stupid as I was. So so that is to the credit of other actors, so I'm super happy for them. I was let me be the example of what not to do in a session like that.
Yeah, and I think that's an example that everyone can follow realistically. So you've voiced many iconic characters in many iconic animes. So what is it about anime that draws you into voicing these kinds of characters? Was it when you got your start with the anime podcast, or was it building up before then?
So I for me, obviously, it's different for every person, but for me, my childhood, I discovered anime when I was really young. I was a fan for a very long time, So going into it, I was very aware of like sort of the culture and the niche and the kind of joy of this specific medium, and it helped that I was a big fan of a lot of these franchises going in. Like I was Fate, like I mentioned, I was already a fan of stuff like Fist of the North Star, or even the later stuff. Like I became a fan of a lot of stuff I was in because of my previous enjoyment of anime. Like now I'm a big Demon Slayer fan. Obviously, I'm very, very concurrent with Jujutsu Kaisen. It's just always been a joy to watch, a joy to work on. It gives me like those fun nostalgia feelings of like, watching Dragon Ball Z on a Saturday morning, watching Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that stuff. I just have a lot of fond memories of it, and so every time I see like an anime audition pass through my inbox, I generally take a stab at it, just to keep the child in me happy.
And because speaking of Jujutsu Kaisen, your voice for Satoru Gojo really resonates well with fans. And why do you think that character is so popular with the fan base? That's an interesting question. I mean, I'm not sure what the magic formula for Satoru Gojo is. It could very well be that he's easy to draw, so he's easy to merchandise. It could very well be his personality. A goofy guy with like superpowers is always really funny. Could be the eyes, right? They spent a lot of their budget on the eyes. He's got very, very beautiful eyes. Or it's a huge combination of these things. I know that he's a comfort character for a lot of folks. It's always nice to imagine having a friend who you can hang out with, be goofy together, but still feel completely safe with in any situation, because he is, the strongest. So yeah, maybe all factor of all of these things combined, it makes him very popular worldwide. Yeah, he's a goofy dude who's fun to watch, and it's 2024. I feel like we kind of need that. Oh, absolutely. So you're uniquely aware that dubbing anime is different from regular voiceover work, especially when you spoke about the experience of voicing Red Magnus, so the physical strain that took on your voice. My question is, how do you ensure that your performances for characters remains authentic?
Yeah, it's actually fairly challenging, because we have lip flaps to worry about, right? Other voice actors for like Western animation, when we do video games, we rarely have to worry about, fitting all our acting within these very specific beats, right? A lot of my peers and I agree that voiceover is actually the most technically difficult form of this craft I'm sorry, not voice, dubbing. Dubbing is the most technically difficult form of voiceover. Because there's no excuse not to be a good actor while you're trying to hit these flaps, right? You have to fit all of that good acting stuff in between these little lines. So I would say that it really does require kind of like a good few solid years of experience for your brain to start latching onto the timing of it. Otherwise, folks who have huge amounts of experience in the acting world, like let's say like on-camera actors or stage actors who by all rights are masters of their craft, you put them in front of a mic for the first time and you ask them to hit these little flaps, their brain will just start like front loading the flaps first, and that acting sort of like kind of trails back while they're trying to concentrate on these. It really is a muscle memory that you have to develop to sound natural, to sound like you're just talking with someone regularly while also hitting these godforsaken little things. My least favorite part of dubbing, to be honest. Everyone's least favorite part of dubbing is the flaps. We're always in the booth, like, you know, being forlorn about like, oh, look at all these amazing acting choices I could be making if it weren't for these little things, right? So yeah, probably that is just the most technically just challenging thing that we come across in the dubbing process. And that sets it apart from other sort of voiceover work.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to dubbing anime, you've also done video game work that involves motion capture, which also makes that element a lot more different than regular voiceover work. So how do voice actors learn to do motion capture?
Yeah, so they do sometimes ask the voice actors to come in and do their own mocap, which is a lot of fun. You know, you get to wear the suit, you get to wear the little sparkly little balls all over the place. It's fun. There are classes that you can take to improve your skills in mocap, like with any other performing arts, and they're always really challenging and really engaging. Like, so I've taken classes where the instructor has set up an entire obstacle course, right? And he's like, hey, I need you to move through this obstacle course as if you were an assassin, right? Like, move through it as if you were a bungling assassin, or like a one who knows what they're doing. It's very much like theater in that aspect. If you are an actor who is trained in theater, you'll feel right at home on the mocap stage, because you get to utilize all those muscles you've built up your life over the course of your training, just in front of different cameras all around you. It's a lot of fun. Now, obviously, sometimes they or a good part of the time, instead of calling in the voice actor, they'll call in professional mocap actors, professional mocap artists, right? Who are very, very, very good at their jobs. So I feel like if you are a voice actor and you do get a chance to do the mocap, I feel like it's an amazing experience, you know? I feel like every voice actor should take some classes in mocap, just in case, you know, the studio calls you in and be like, hey, you're doing your own mocap today. It's even if you aren't a voice actor, honestly, a mocap class is just so much fun. It's good exercise. Sometimes you get a little banged up because, you know, if you're not experienced, you don't know what you're doing, and maybe you're like, you know, you get hit with a weapon too hard, or, you know, you fall off a place you shouldn't fall off. But man, yeah, it's a wild ride, man. And anytime they have me come in to do mocap, I'm always psyched to do it.
Right. So would you say that the movement aspect is what really differentiates voicing video game characters as opposed to other voiceover mediums?
Absolutely. I mean, for voicing video games over anime, generally, like you mentioned, there is sometimes dubbing aspects involved if you are, dubbing games coming in and over from the East. But a lot of video games here, like you never have to worry about hitting any lip flaps, and it's so freeing, right? Nowadays they'll put like a little helmet on you, like for like AAA titles, they have a camera, they record your face, and you know the actions and emotions you have on your face, the storytelling you can do with that, you can put right onto the character afterwards, which is amazing. And for, you know, the motion capture aspect of it, you know, we as voice actors concentrate and focus on telling a story with simply the quality of our voice, right? Because generally, unlike other actors, we don't have access to all of our storytelling tools. We don't have access to our facial features. We don't have access to our bodies. You know, there's tons of stuff stage and screen actors can, tons of stories they can tell with just a movement or just like a wrinkle of the brow, right? We don't have that. So we have to put that all in our voice until we get into the mocap suit, in which case it's the complete opposite. You have to revert back to like all your theater training. You have to tell the whole story with your body, you know? Like, you can't trust on what's going to come out of your voice because you don't know what that final recording sounds like yet, right? So yeah, if you have to tell a sad story, you have to put all of that in your body. You have to make sure, you know, you have to call back all your on-camera skills, and you have to make sure your angles are right. It's a great challenge, especially for someone, if you are an actor who has had that training, has then gone into voiceover and hasn't had to use it for a while. It's great to dust all that off and bring it back, you know?
Yeah. And one of the video game roles that you have voiced in the Yakuza game series is Ichiban Kasuga. And what exactly was that experience like for voicing that character?
Oh yeah, Ichiban is a joy to voice, man. I just think he's one of my favorite protagonists because, having a guy who went through as much as he did and having those experiences not sour him and turn him into a worse person, but instead choosing goodness and light and passion and caring, I feel like that's such a stronger choice. Like it's easy to have a protagonist go down a dark path or make them kind of a grumpy person after going through all this stuff, but to have a lead character just choose goodness is an outrageously strong choice for a story. So when I got to really get into his shoes, every second in the booth was just kind of filled with joy, man. This dude, I want to grow up to be just like Ichiban, to be honest, man. I want to be like as passionate for any new life experience. He's down for anything, basically. I want to be as hyped for my friends when they get their W's, like I don't know, man. Like Ichiban has been one of the coolest dudes that I've ever had the pleasure to work with on in a video game. And for the process itself, how I talked about dubbing is like my least favorite thing about any sort of job like that. We had the privilege for 7 and 8 to have sort of like not quite sure what it is. It's a program. It's a new program that allows that automatically fixes lip flaps during cutscenes afterwards. So all I really had to worry about is where I started and where I ended, and then afterwards, this little machine would automatically put the lip flaps into place, which was amazing. It was so freeing. Ichiban never had to worry about any of the lip flaps. He could just enjoy life to the fullest, and it was such a freeing experience. 10 out of 10 would do again.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it definitely sounds like voicing Ichiban had the most positive impact on your voice, as well as the technology aspect with not having to worry about lip flaps, which sounds like a video game and dubbing artist's best dream ever. So that sounds like a very positive experience. Now, you've had a very successful voice acting career with hundreds of credits. So what is the secret that you have discovered to longevity in the voiceover industry and maintaining full-time work?
Right. Well, that's a $1 million question, right? Like, that's the secret sauce question. This is going to be another. It's different for every human because every human is different. But generally, the key ingredient in having a long career is, I don't want to say, stubbornness is not the right word. Stubbornness is just certainly not the right word, but it is akin to stubbornness. This town is just built upon rejection, right? When you get into Los Angeles for the first time, people are going to look at you and be like, who are you? We don't know who you are. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Even if you're like massively talented, even if you're like hyper talented, guess what? There are hundreds of thousands of actors in Los Angeles just as good as you, if not better, with more training, more experience, a higher caliber of education, better resumes, and you are from the ground up competing with those amazing talents. So sometimes it does take a number of years. In our industry, there's a saying that we like to say, if you are working even semi-regularly after 10 years, you are considered an overnight success. That is how long it takes. You have to really put in that time to establish your relationship with all these studios, your personal relationship with all these casting directors. You've got to be a good person. No one wants to work with a jerk, right? Like you want to be a good guy. So yeah, it's a combination of knowing what you're doing, knowing the right people, having developed real human relationships with them. I know people like to throw around the term networking a lot. It's kind of like a term. What you really want to be doing is showing that you're a passionate, real human, that you're here to work, you're here to dedicate yourself to a good product, that you're willing to learn, to improve, to make the story sound the best it can possibly sound in whatever project you're in.
And as long as you show that passion, that drive, that willingness to learn and improve, people in town notice after a while. Folks in town are like, hey, you know what? This guy, maybe he didn't sound too great to start with. I certainly didn't. I was not the best actor when I first started, right? But when these casting folks would be like, hey, look, we noticed that you've stayed throughout all these years. You've been here for years and years and years. We've heard you get better. We'd like to offer you an opportunity, right? That happens. Once they know you, that happens. So it's like I said, stubbornness is not the right word, but it is certainly grit. You have to have a certain level of grit and thick skin and the ability to shrug off all that initial rejection. And then, as long as you can stay in it, it gets a little easier as you do the work. Work begets work, it snowballs, and at some point you'll find yourself in a good place.
Yeah, that answer alone, I would say, is pretty inspiring, and like I'm even feeling like I want to just go start looking for voice acting and dubbing work, really, because I have no idea how to do any of this, but your answer alone has inspired me enough. So say, for example, I wanted to start off and I would be a newbie. So what would be your advice for voice actors looking to start doing anime and video game work?
I feel like the ultimate piece of advice for acting, as the best piece of advice I can give at my current level of knowledge about it is, out of all the actors I've ever seen come in and out of this job during my around 18 years now of doing this, and I have seen people come and go, the main factor in staying power, aside from the grit, aside from the not stubbornness, but stubbornness, is passion for acting. A lot of folks get into this business and they're like, oh, I want the limelight, I want the convention appearances, I want to win an award, or I want the clout, I want the followers, and that is the antithesis of what will get you hired. People will sniff that out really fast. What people really are attracted to are people who are honestly and earnestly passionate about the craft, who want to learn more about it, who want to become better storytellers. Those people stay the longest because their passion drives them and their passion is noticeable. So I would say, become a fan of acting, become a nerd about acting. We're all nerds about different sort of things. Like, I've got different hobbies that I'm a huge nerd about. Like, I deep dive on Magic the Gathering very often, but you have to sort of have that kind of like fanness going into the craft, I feel, right? It helps so much for you to just be a huge weeb about acting, a huge nerd about acting, a huge fan about acting. If you find yourself getting into the guts of a certain style of acting, if you are waxing poetic about, like, Meisner technique, then you're sort of on the right path, right? Then people are like, oh man, this dude's an actor, right? This dude really likes acting. We want to hire people who really love acting because we know that they're going to deliver. They're going to deliver something awesome, right? Or at the very least, they're going to try their very, very best and it's going to be awesome no matter what. That's the kind of passion that I would really encourage people to develop about this craft. If you want to be an actor, be a nerd about acting, and it's going to serve you.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty sound piece of advice. Now, Kaiji, before we start wrapping this up, I do have one more question. Now, recently in Los Angeles, as well as the rest of the acting sphere in the world, AI voiceover has become a major point of concern that lots of actors are worried about. What do you see for the future of the industry, as well as the competition between AI and real voice talent?
Yeah. It's interesting right now. So obviously it's kind of like an existential threat to our entire industry, and of course to many industries around the world. AI is, AI is here, and who knows what its impact will be across the board. Right now, currently, there's legislation being passed, or at least being looked at, and right about to be signed for some sort of control over it, right? Like, there's going to be some laws, hopefully, that limit the use of like these digital replicas that people
are looking to use of our voices. Hopefully there's going to be stuff in place for us to, you know, get paid for any instance where that happens, where people can't just steal it. That's the big fear, right? If like a big company just takes your voice without letting you know, without paying you or doing anything basically, and using it for like a huge commercial, and you'll never see a cent of it and all that stuff. You know, that really sucks. And I wish I could say that wasn't a real fear, but it certainly is. So what we are doing as a community, we are doing our very best. SAG is doing their best to sort of like nip it in the bud as quickly as possible. I wish I could give you a solid answer, bro, but the scary part is, like, I don't have it, you know? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what kind of legislation is coming down the pipeline. We don't know how many people will care. That's the most important thing. I feel like the most anyone can do as fans of the medium, as human beings, like, looking to preserve our voices, not having them necromancied up after we die to, like, you know, voice in a diaper commercial, all that stuff, is the sort of, I don't know, is the sort of just, you know, support, I would say support real actors, right? If you find a company using these AI voices, think twice about maybe spending your money where you want to spend it. It's a scary time. So if people want this job to exist in the future, we really have to nip it in the bud. And I feel like that's kind of a doom and gloom way to answer it, but yeah, I wish there wasn't a doom and gloom way to answer it. I wish there was like a way for me to be like, yeah, there's hope on the horizon, you know, it's not going to be a problem. I mean, the honest answer is, yeah, in some cases it is cheaper to produce these projects with AI voices. Now of course, do they sound good? No. Are they capable of telling like a fully fleshed out story? No, not even close. The technology is certainly not there yet. But who knows what it'll look like a year from now? Who knows what it'll sound like 2 years from now? You know? So we're gonna have to wait and see. I choose to believe that we will pass legislation and protect people's, you know, hopefully protect people's identities and voices, and, you know, already we are seeing some of and it's kind of creepy, like we are seeing like people try to dredge up dead actors' voices for projects. It's really kind of, you know, gross, you know. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm also not so naive to think this will just go away. You know, new technology that saves money rarely goes away. You know, we've all learned that at this point. So the best we can do is regulate it, use it wisely. Maybe there could be room for it in little ways in the industry, but not to replace humans. You know, it would be, imagine playing like imagine playing any game with like what is that zombie game, The Last of Us, right? Imagine playing Last of Us and it's like, you know, it's like an AI with an AI cast. It just would not be the same experience. You know, we're just one Taylor Swift lawsuit away from getting all regulated, so fingers crossed, you know what I mean?
Oh my god. Oh, that hits hard. So, Kaiji, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I wish you every success going forward, and thank you so much for sharing your insights for the anime dubbing industry.
Thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure. I'm glad we got to talk today, and yeah, hopefully you have a fantastic one, my friend.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like and a comment below, and subscribe if you want to see more voice actor interviews like this in the future. See ya!